fabulous leaders. We're going to have candid conversations. We're going to learn from their experience and hopefully get some really valuable morsels out of this series. So the reason why I've put this together is I have been in the industry for 20 years. I've been working with fabulous people. I've met some extraordinary leaders. I've helped build some extraordinary teams, and I really wanted to bring some of the knowledge and experience that I have come across to as many people as possible. So I've chosen LinkedIn Live to do this. I hope this forum works for everybody, and I will be here at 11:30 every Thursday until I run out of leaders to talk to, and I hope it's helpful for you. I've just put together this very short video to launch us each week so that people can see us go live, they can jump on board, and they know we're here. So bear with me, we will be going live at 11:30 as promised. So why is this important? This is important because it's to be good at what you do. It's really important to model good people. So if you want to be the best, model the best. And I have worked with so many wonderful leaders and helped them build teams. I've seen some really fabulous leadership styles. I've seen people who've developed over time as leaders, and the fastest way to do that is to, yes, there's theory, but let's move away from theory a little bit and let's look at what really happens in these roles for these people, and let's learn from the mistakes that some of the leaders have made. So I suppose I'm bringing mentors to the table through the experience that I have and the people who I have met over the years. So hopefully it's inspiring to you. Hopefully it's a place where you will gain some valuable information. Even if you pick up one thing from the conversation we're having each week, then that will be enough for me to feel as if I've brought you value. So I really do hope that you receive value from this. What I would love from you is if you can let us know you're here. Obviously we're live on LinkedIn. We would love interaction from you to know that you're here, you're listening. Let us know if there's something that comes up for you that resonates with you, something that you want to ask. The aim will be 20 minutes of conversation and then 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, depending on how we end up. So hopefully that works for you all. As I say, please interact with us, engage. And if you would like a transcript of this session, I'm going to share transcripts with people who come to me and ask for them, and I will also put together a document which will be all of the key takeouts, the key learnings that we've received from each session. So I'll also be able to share that with you if you pop a comment in at the end of the conversation. So really excited to be here once again. Let's get on with it. I will see you on the other side. Hello and welcome to this wonderful candid conversation with Wendy O'Keefe. I'm just, for some reason, there doesn't seem to be anyone on with us, but let's get started. I am hoping that people are going to find the link and jump in as we're talking. So hello to anybody who's here and anybody who comes on board. Welcome to Wendy. How are you today, Wendy?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you. Thanks, Beck, for inviting me on. I'm sort of excited about the conversation we're having today, and in particular excited about being candid about my journey. There's so many things that I've learned along the way, and I'd love to share them.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I'm very grateful that you're open to doing that, and because that's the whole sort of point here. Now, guys, I'm just going to give you an intro on Wendy. So Wendy has been in leadership roles for many years. She's a veteran, without making her sound too old. Wendy's had more than 30 years experience in the IT industry, and most of those she's been in leadership roles. So very started in Ingram Micro and Tech Pacific in New Zealand, and then with Tech Pacific came to Australia and has been involved in the industry here ever since. Wendy actually ran Westcon Group for about in exec management roles in the Westcon Group for about 15 years, and has run teams from 15 through to 700, and is just embarking on the exciting journey of building our next gen distribution in the Asia Pacific region moving forward. So that's really exciting. And I think, Wendy, you're moving up to Singapore when things change, and you can do that. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. I'm looking forward to that, actually. I mean, this is starting a business from scratch, pretty much. So I'm a team of one with a great sort of group of, colleagues at NextGen and others that are helping me sort of work through the process this year. But I hope to be a team of many coming into January next year, based out of Singapore.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's exciting time. So you've got to do it all again, and you've got a pretty good kit bag in terms of knowing what you're doing these days.
I think so. God, don't we learn so much over the years? You hear people talk about it, when they're a bit older. Me, but I remember when I was younger, people talk about it and go, "Oh, I wish I was, I had the head now. When I was 20, I had the head that, where I was in my headspace when I was, 50, 60, because you sort of have so much more to give and so much more to give back, I guess, and you're so much more self-aware of how you impact people and how you impact situations. So that's where I am, I guess, but still learning.
Yeah, I try telling my kids that. I remember my mum telling me that, you don't really know anything until you're 20, 30, 40. And it's so true. And I think it takes the experience to actually recognize it and to get there. So that's why I'm so thrilled to have people coming on this and sharing their wisdom, because it's just so important. And you don't get it until you've done it. So,
right.
So I appreciate it. So tell us how you got into leadership and what made you jump into leadership in the first place.
Look, I think actually I had a really difficult first marriage, and I know that doesn't normally connect to a leadership style, sort of journey. But for me, I had this really challenging first marriage, and I came out of it 3 years after, having a really tough time with a 2-year-old. I had a 2-year-old child at the time, and went, well, that's it. I'm going to just have to run my own destiny from now on. I have to own it. I have to own what I'm going to do, and I have to be successful. And so that's really, I think that sort of propelled me into it. And so sometimes adversity, people sort of, rise up through adversity, and I would say that was part of it. And I think secondly, I run fast in life and I run fast in business, and I always thought that actually the best way to be successful was to be the person who made all the decisions, right? So that was back in my early 20s. So that's not necessarily the case, right? But that for me was really where I was at. And so when I started at Tech Pacific in New Zealand, I worked for a great guy called Tony Butler, and he hired me, I think, as employee 7 or 8. And after about a year and a half, I was a BDM. And, on the road, I was traveling 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks, I do the rounds in the North Island and part of the South Island in New Zealand. And then I ring him one day. I go, Tony, I feel like I should be sales management now. I'm 23. Come on, give me a go. And he laughed. He used to call me Spindle. I went to your wife. And he goes, are you serious? And I said, yeah, man, I'm serious. He goes, well, ha, ha, ha. I think that's ridiculous. You two, you need a bit more time under your belt. And I'm like, okay, well, what about in Australia? Do you know if the TechPack Australia's got any jobs going? So credit to Tony, he reached out and they gave me a job setting up the Perth branch. There was no TechPack in Perth. So I said, sure, I'll go to Perth. I didn't really know what Perth was. And I wanted to go to Sydney originally. So I get myself to Perth and I start there. And following that, they gave me the most beautiful journey in terms of career. Honestly, I was so thrilled. And I worked for them actually 2 times over a period of around about 12 years. Okay. And loved it. I had so much fun. I learned a lot. And so really that's where I started.
Yeah. Firstly, can I thank you for sharing something so personal? And at the beginning of that, you were talking about your marriage and, how that sort of drove you. And so I really appreciate that. And, I think probably a precursor to some of the candid conversation we're going to have moving forward. So, I'm really grateful to you for that. And so moving into leadership, obviously, thinking that the world owed you the job because you'd done your time and you were ready. What were the things that you didn't know then that you do know now that you've realised you learned along the way?
There's literally I could make hundreds of comments on this. So because there's so much I've learned. But here's a couple of things that really stand out for me. Your role as a leader isn't about you. Your role as a leader is about how you grow others. In fact, it's our absolute responsibility to do so. And so that was one thing that's taken me a while to understand. And I think I was so self-serving, and I don't mean that in a horrible way, but thinking about what I needed, what was best for the business. But in fact, actually, our role as leaders is to bubble out that next generation of people. And, we see it in our organizations. We see these little super bright lights, and, it's our job really to do that. So that's one of the, I guess, biggest learnings. And another one for me was really about style. Honestly, I thought everyone thought like me. And the way that I made decisions was the best. The way that I communicated was the best. And I thought that was just the way it was. Like, it never occurred to me that there's different ways of looking at problem solving or different ways of looking at how, things are done. So I just thought, really my opinion was pretty cool. So I really lacked significant versatility in my approach. And so one of the things that I found out was that in order to bubble up innovation in your organization, it's very difficult. The bigger you get, the harder it is. But in order to bubble up innovation, you have to create safe spaces for people to talk and discuss stuff. You can't do that if you approach your communication to your organization and people in one way, because everyone's different. So I was fortunate back in 2000, I can't remember what, mid-2000s, that I had a wonderful lady that I brought in to teach the business around how to deal with each other. So to build teams better, right? Her name is Ros Ronning. She's friggin' awesome. And Ros came in and she taught us about what we call social styles, and really effectively what that did for me is really realize that there's people that make decisions fast, who are very task-oriented, make decisions fast, which is me. And then there's people that need all the data, everything. Their stress is in making the decision. They need all the information. Therefore, they're slower. They need to consult more. They need to, do all these sorts of things. And so for me, I had to learn the art of dealing with and communicating with people that weren't fast as me.
Yeah.
And that's a big lesson. You have to be versatile if you want to be a great leader. You can't, one size doesn't fit all. So that'd be my mate. And for me, that's a continuing journey. Yeah. I have to really keep working on that.
Yeah.
Really keep working on that.
I think it really starts with awareness. And so, and that's something that you build over time. Yeah. And as you say, you kind of, you have these little sparks, these little light bulb moments throughout your career as a leader. And, you can choose to ignore them, or you can choose to embrace them. Yeah. And, you would be, and I haven't checked this, and so I may be wrong, but I would say you are most likely a DI energy. And, D energies with, very focused, very driven, very outcomes. And to take on board that other way of doing things is a challenge. So, it's a fantastic lesson. And thank you for bringing that up today. It's really, it's really for people to understand.
Oh, it blew me away. That training was fundamental to me understanding. And she used the characters of the Simpsons family to describe it all, because those four characters, the major characters, Bart and Homer and, Lisa and Marge, all sit within the social styles of individuals. And so that allowed us to sort of figure that through. So that for me was amazing training, and I think of that all of the time. Yeah. And then I guess the third thing, there's hundreds of things I can say, but the third thing for me is in listening.
Yeah.
So I want to just point out a guy called Oscar Trimboli. He has dedicated his life now to building a practice around teaching people to listen. And if leaders listen properly, you listen with your eyes, you listen with your ears, you listen with everything, not just your ears, but everything. And you ask a lot of questions, and then you speak last. So listen, you learn more from people, you learn more from your customers, your kids, your partner, your staff than you can from yourself. So the motto I use there is seek to understand before you seek to be understood.
Yes, that's brilliant. That's an absolute
You know?
gem. I love Oscar's book. The work he does is amazing. So yeah, fantastic. And I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well afterwards. So yeah, thank you for that. There's some really big lessons learned there, and we could go down lots and lots of rabbit holes, but for the sake of expedience, thank you for sharing that. I'm just checking the feed. I can't see how many people are here, but we're getting some comments. So fantastic. That's
here we go.
Great. Yeah, there's some comments coming in. Are they coming up on here as well? Fantastic. So yes, welcome everybody. We're glad you're there. So for you've just talked about 3 things. Are there any other traits you would add in terms of what you would think are traits of a good leader? Now you know what it looks like and what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot we have to cover, to be fair. I think as a leader, you need to be really clear about your purpose and vision. And I know that sounds weird, but not weird, but it's sort of textbook, but you sort of do. People want to follow. People want to know exactly what they're doing. They need clarity of vision and purpose. And so therefore they can do their job well. That'd be and that has to be constant within the business, constantly, built within the business. So whether that cascades down into people's roles and tasks and KPIs or whatever, but we need to know why we exist in the business. We need to know why we're there, what's the purpose. So I think that's important. I can't stress enough the need to be, a good listener and being patient. There's nothing worse than a leader that's moody. And I have to be honest, I was moody, and I try, and I can be, because I'm not a robot, but you can't be moody. If people coming to see you to talk about stuff and you look like a cranky pants, then, people are not going to trust you because they feel fearful of you. So one of the things is being consistent in your behaviour. I think being kind and considerate. I've had many leaders that haven't been, and I've had a lot of leaders that have been. So kind and considerate, but truthful. Like you have to be truthful. Like you have to speak your truth and do it in a beautiful way from the heart, but speak the truth,
Yes. Yeah, so important. So important.
Yeah.
I just noticed a comment from Brian Wisefield.
Yeah.
Wendy fan from California. So he's joining us from
Hey,
California.
Brian.
And there's Nick. Nick is in there, my hero. So, fantastic. You've got lots of fans. You've got your fan base.
Yeah. I got a story about Nick. You have to ask me about mentors.
Yeah, okay. So who have been some of the sort of key mentors? What have been the key lessons they've taught you?
Okay. So this is a Nick Verricchius. Now, Nick used to be my boss at Land Systems Westcon. He's probably one of the most amazing marketing guys you'll ever meet. And also incredibly intelligent and fabulous and unique. He's just a unique guy. And so I had the opportunity to work with him, but I was quite naive as well. Anyway, he comes and sits down at my desk one day, and he goes, so I've decided to, invest in executive coaching for the leadership team. And I say, okay. And he goes, so, this guy's going to reach out to, his name's Wally, and it'd be great for you to connect and go from there. And I look at Nick, and I'm quite serious. I go, Nick, I don't need executive coaching. No, honestly, I was very, very serious about it. And Nick was very good with me. He goes, okay, well, Wally will probably reach out and, just see what happens. And I'm like, so, and then I reflect back on that and I go, well, actually, what was driving that response, right? Was it my own personal arrogance and ego, or was it fear? And I still, honestly, that's nearly 13 years ago. I don't know how long ago, maybe 12 years ago. I don't know which one it was. But I think it was arrogance. And anyway, so Wally Barnier rings me and I go, hey, Wally, thanks, mate. Sure you do. You can work with the other team members because I certainly don't need any improvement. And so Wally goes, oh, okay. Well, do you mind filling in a form for me? Just do that. And look, I'm in town next week. Why don't we just have coffee? And it started that way. And so suddenly I was opened up to the world of learning who I was and how I was perceived from the outside of my own personal brand within my team and other people. And wow, that was a bit of an eye-opener. I didn't really like it, but because it made me feel uncomfortable. But I've had 3 other coaches from then on, and I just want to thank Nick for that, because if he hadn't done that, he hadn't invested in my future as a leader, that wouldn't have happened.
That's
So
amazing.
he taught me to be humble and not arrogant. Yeah. So.
And do you think that's made a difference to how you've sort of developed your teams in
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think some people are really open to having a lot of feedback and working on that. I found it really difficult because I wanted to be perfect. And I didn't want people to see that I was potentially a fraud, or, this imposter syndrome is really challenging. And so I do think it's a nice opportunity if you can help people with this journey in a beautiful way. And Nick started that in a beautiful way, didn't demand it. He pushed it, but he wasn't demanding. So, yes, I completely agree that we need to invest in our leadership, in our people. And that's a really great way also to unite the team, because if we're all on the same journey, we're all exploring how we behave and exploring how we are, then it allows us to be a little bit more truthful and a little bit more real.
Yes. And the thing is, we're all humans, right? So businesses are made up of humans. And so I think it's such an important thing that a leader is able to bring, and you've done this beautifully today. It's amazing, your vulnerability and, the acknowledgement that it's actually okay to be wrong or not to be perfect, and that allows other people realize that they don't have to be perfect either, and that they can actually step up and create, innovate, and make mistakes, and f up and whatever happens. So I think it's such an important trait in a leader to be able to, and people talk about vulnerability as if it's sort of soft and fluffy and I'm going to break down crying in the middle of a meeting. Not at all. But I think it is, it's sharing something that makes people feel comfortable they can share themselves, and that's so important to any. So amazing.
But outside of Nick, I had hundreds literally, and I the people I learn from too are my children. Hopefully I brought them up in a way that they're able to be direct with me, and they challenge me and they slap me when I need a slap. So that's been great. And then I guess from a work perspective, I've always believed now that you can learn from the worst. You can learn from managers that are horrible.
Yeah.
Because there's something to be learnt from that. Obviously, if you have a bad leader, and I'm talking behaviourally bad, and maybe also, not good at what they do, you can learn from that. You can learn about how not to be a bad leader. So I think that's one of the big things too. So that's quite important. But I've had some great mentors, and I've got a couple more that I'd love to chat to, which, some key learnings around if we have time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
who else?
Dave Corcoran was worked for us as well. He's worked for Westcon Group, or Westcon Comstore now since 2000, and he's the Asia Pacific CFO. So he was a colleague. He worked with me and alongside me, and he also worked with Nick and John Walters and the team when we were all together. And he was someone I most admire in terms of the way he approaches problem solving. So he taught me, because he's really consistent with the way he behaves all the time. People bring in big problems, little problems, whatever. And, he just sits there and he goes, and he finds out what the real problem is, and he's never distracted by the noise of all the other stuff. So he taught me how to find and drill down to the right problem to fix. So I think, and also he's the most consistent person in the world. He's never he's the same every day. Beautiful example of leadership.
Yeah.
And then I had this great CEO. His name was Dolph Westerboss. Oh my God, he was the CEO of Westcon Group, and I reported to him for a couple of years. And he was the most fastidious man you've ever met, like the most impeccable. Everything was done impeccably. He taught me to focus on listing my personal brand. And I have to share the story. It was hilarious. We were in New York and we were presenting to the board of directors, and Dolph made sure that presentations were perfect down to the last font. Everything on that page of the presentations, everything's perfect. And Bill Corbin, one of my colleagues, was there, and Dolph said, "Oh, mate, your shirt is not ironed well enough. You need to," and he called, we're in a hotel, and he called housekeeping to come in, and they ironed his shirts in the bathroom. so that he would look better. Now, okay, that's a funny story, but the reality is what he taught me was that you have to make sure that your personal brand is top of mind physically, what comes out of your mouth, everything, and that you need to be prepared, deeply prepared for everything. And that's what he taught me, and I love that about him. And the other thing that he taught me was be kind when you're even in the hardest. If you're doing organizational change and you have to downsize or whatever you need to do, you can do it in a beautiful, kind way. You don't have to do it harshly. And he did a great job, honestly. He's the most polished professional, so fabulous. Yeah.
I love how you've learned different things from different people. And I mean, there's so much that makes up good leadership, and all of that has such a massive impact on building great teams. And without great teams, really, as leaders, we're nothing, right? So, something you said to me when we were talking the other day was that, when you hire talent that makes a team sing. And I think there's a lot of those people, those talented people that you've hired over the years on this stream, because there's some great conversations going on there. So tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Well, I don't know. As a manager and a leader, if there's any of you watching here who are, in the middle of your journey for leadership or management, then I hope that you are, right? But some of the things that you're taught is that you've got to, determine everyone's weaknesses and, put together plans to, fix those weaknesses and what have you. And I'm not sure about that. I feel like everyone has areas that they are superheroes in, like superheroes, and there's areas that they're not superheroes, and you need to focus on the superhero component. What are they amazing? And you need to bring that to life. Once you bring that to life with everybody across the whole team, you end up really with a kick-ass team that feel confident about what they're great at, not what they're not great at. Like, you don't hire people for it. You hire them for what they're great at. You need to bubble that up and bring it out and make sure that you make them feel valued, not devalued through that. So that's what I mean, is you hire to make the whole team sing, and that you focus on what they're great at, Haven't always done that well, by the way, I have to be honest. One of the lessons that I learned, continue to learn, is in recruitment is the most important aspect of your role, getting that right. One of the most important aspects.
Yeah, it should be a constant process as well, shouldn't it, in terms of identifying people? I know you said that you're really good at picking strengths in people and traits in people that you sort of meet around and bringing them into the team and then bringing them up through the team. And I think we talked about how you sometimes have recognised things in people that they haven't recognised themselves, and that's an amazing talent. And amazing that but it works for you as a leader, right? Because you've got to, it helps you achieve what you need to achieve with your team.
Yeah.
So is there any sort of secret to identifying the things, the thing that makes people great?
I don't know. That's a really hard one. I just finished up at Tech Data, did 2.5 years there, and oh my God, they had some beautiful, amazing people. And they still do, like the most incredible people, that all different. What I see is people that are, okay, let me think of someone. Paul O'Connell, he's on the call. Paul, what I love about you is that you're so forensic with your business development. Like, you're the best at that. You approach it the same every day. You are committed, you're loyal, you work hard, you make sure you're successful, you do, you just get on with it. And that's, he's a superstar at that, like, honestly, superstar at that. And he's crafted that over years. I can see it.
Yeah.
I've got a guy that works in the Next Gen Australia business. He works for, Gabe. His name's Ben. And he's insanely amazing at helping. He's been helping me actually on my journey to, craft out some conversations and with potential partners, and he for Asia, and he is genuinely the most helpful, smart. He thinks about things before he provides me feedback. He goes and does research around it. Honestly, that to me is a superstar.
Yeah.
People that are prepared to give, people that are always positive, so that you can see them in your organisation. And one of the pieces of advice I give you as an upcoming leader, don't leave those people to just be identified by your team leaders or your managers. You can see them. You've got to touch those people and just bring them in and just talk to them about it, and don't leave it to HR to do. Your job is to bubble these people up and make them successful, make them amazing. In fact, your job is to get them the career that they deserve, right?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Great advice. Now, I'm thinking time. It's actually already 11:56. Can you believe it? Thank you for all the comments. And yeah, Jody, I love strengths-based development. That's and looking at character strengths and bringing them through, which is what you were talking about before. That's great. And I want to acknowledge you for the fact that you acknowledge strengths in others. I think that's a phenomenal trait in anyone, and it must be. I can see why people love working for you. If you're calling out and you're acknowledging and you're you're valuing the people who are in your team, then no wonder people want to come seek you out and want to work for you. So yeah, thank you for that. And on behalf of everybody who you've done this for, I have one big question that I want to ask you to wrap this up. So sorry to wrap up sort of suddenly, but we've got 3 minutes. Sorry, once again, I haven't got to questions. If you have questions for Wendy, please do pop them in the chat and we will try and respond to those afterwards. And by all means, if you want to connect with Wendy, reach out to her here on LinkedIn. And my big question to finish off is, if you could only share one thing, so you've learned all of these things, but if you had to put it all aside and just say the one thing that's really important and powerful to leaders who are up and coming or who are in the middle of their journey right now, what would it be?
I would say be considerate of your employees. Everyone who works for you or the business does it because they need a paycheck, but also because they want to feel important about their contribution.
Yeah.
So if you're not considerate of helping them be successful, and part of that is about removing roadblocks, then it's really hard for them to fly. So you have to work on removing those roadblocks, work on being considerate with them, and value the fact that they're there because they want to be feeling good about their contribution. So it's all about the people. You don't have good people, you don't have a good business.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, thank you so much. I absolutely appreciate your time. Let's have a very quick look at the chat before we sign off and just see if there's any questions that have come up. I think it's just more acknowledgements and agreement.
Brian Weisfield's on there. Brian, I love Brian. He's from California too. Actually, Brian's a superstar too. Oh my God, you want to interview Brian? He is the most amazing advocate for girls who want to be entrepreneurs. He's written this great book. So anyway, reach out to Brian. I'll introduce you.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Sounds great. Learned so much from you today in 30 minutes. And yeah, people seek you out to work for you. Yes. He says, sign me in. That was Guy McPhee. So there you go. That's your next hire. Wonderful. And yes, lead with empathy, Todd. It's a brilliant thing. So I appreciate everybody on this call today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Wendy. I really appreciate you. And I will see you all next week at 11:30. I would love to hear from you if you have any comments or feedback on this session as well.
Thanks, Beck. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful you managed to take time out to spend with us. I hope you got some value from the conversation. And just a reminder, I will be here every Thursday at 11:30 talking to another fabulous leader and bringing you more great morsels and value and mentoring. So please do join me. And if there's anything you would like to talk about when it comes to attracting, developing, retaining high-performing teams, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation. If you would like a transcript of the session, please remember to leave me a message or get in touch, and I'll also produce a document which will have the key takeouts from today's session, so I can share that with you too. All right, thanks again. Have a fabulous day. I will see you next time.